Brian Jones, A Rolling Stones Mystery, an audio investigation. Written by Geoffrey Giuliano. Narrated by Geoffrey Giuliano.
Louis Brian Hopkins Jones was born February 28, 1942, the eldest child of Welsh aeronautical engineer Louis and his schoolteacher wife Louisa. He was bright and inquisitive, but often overtly sensitive and withdrawn. Neighbors remember him contentedly roaming the neighborhood with his pet goat and his inseparable feline companion Rolander. Throughout his life, Brian was exceedingly popular with the ladies, which several times ended in an unexpected pregnancy and therefore a lot of attendant hassle. When he was 17, Jones left school, taking with him 9.0 and 2 A-levels. He then hitched to Sweden in an attempt at breaking free of the strict dictates of his parents' solemn middle-class home. Eventually, Brian became friendly with blues legend Alexis Korner, who encouraged the young man to follow his dream of becoming a rock and blues man in sleepy, trad jazz-oriented London. It was during one of these irregular jaunts to London that Brian first met up with Mick Jagger and Keith Richard. The rest is rock and roll history, with the Stones quickly becoming second only to the Beatles in popularity with the music-loving teens of the world. In 1965, Brian met the aristocratic and worldly Anita Pallenberg, who would introduce him to a whole new world of privilege and sophistication. For Jones, here was the woman of whom he had always dreamed, and with the solid success of the Stones under his belt, there was no stopping him. All of that came to an abrupt halt, however, in May of 1967, when Brian's flat was raided by the drug squad of Scotland Yard. Eventually, his various so-called addictions resulted in him being heartlessly ousted from the Stones in the sultry summer of 1969. It is here that we begin our story, and that for Brian Jones, his time on Earth was beginning to slowly tick away. In this exclusive interview, Brian's father remembers the boy who would one day almost single-handedly redefine the face of popular music.
Up to a certain point, Brian was a perfectly normal, conventional boy who was well-behaved and was well-liked. Liked, I suppose, because he was well-behaved. He did his studies, and he was quite a model schoolboy. And then there came this peculiar change in his early teens. At the time, I suppose, he began to become a man, where he began to get some resentment of authority. It's something we hear an awful lot about now, heard less about then, but it was becoming apparent with him. He seemed to have, firstly, a mild rebellion against authority, which unfortunately became stronger as he grew older. It was a rebellion against parental authority, and it was certainly a rebellion against the school authority. He often used to say, why should he do something he was told just because the person who was telling him was older?
Pat Andrews, Brian's first love in his uptight hometown of Cheltenham, looks back on the apparently grim Jones household, as well as his relations with both his parents and his younger sister, Barbara.
Then I would have said that he probably hated them. But on retrospect and when you grow up and you can see things, he actually loved them a great deal, but he was very, very sad, very unhappy, very hurt at the fact that they could not accept his lifestyle, that he wished to be a musician, that perhaps he didn't conform to the sort of person that they actually wanted him to be. And so he didn't, although he didn't keep in touch a great deal, he often went out of his way to be in a place where he knew his father might be. To me, it was a very somber, very serious. There was no joy, no laughter, no happiness, none of the sort of things that I knew at my home. It almost reminded me of a Victorian household. His mum was extremely polite to me when I first met her, because Brian had had an accident on his way to work, and he'd called in.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?